Welcome to Q&A practice. We'll start with a little bit of two voice, starting with the defense. Ready? Here we go. Now, had Mr. Nixon ever been to your mother's office, to your knowledge? I believe so. I'm not sure. Did he ever touch anything in the house? Yeah, he had been to the house on several occasions. Do you know whether your mother had any envelopes similar to that one in her house or in her office? Not that I know of. You saw a man wearing a straw hat and wearing a blue shirt with short sleeves. He had on a beige shirt with blue short sleeves. He was carrying a briefcase, is that correct? Yes. And you said that the hat had a blue ribbon around it? Yes. You were unable to identify Mr. Nixon at that time because you didn't see his face, is that right? Right. So you don't know whether that was Mr. Nixon or just another large individual. Is that correct? Correct. I can't be sure. After you looked through the window, did you open the door? After I looked through the window, I went to the mailbox, and that's when I saw the device. You never shouted out to Mr. Nixon before you knew what was in the mailbox? No. Now you and Mr. Nixon had never had any problems, had you? No, not personally. Is there any reason you didn't ask him what he was doing? Well, the whole circumstances surrounding the past 2 months had been really unfriendly with him. Nobody in the family would have spoken to him. Was the family trying to avoid him? Yes. Were you familiar with your neighbor across the street? Yes. All right, now let's work on our transcript. And we'll start with the plaintiff. Ready? And if I talk about the subject date or the date of the accident today, I'm referring to July 18th, 2012, okay? Yes. With regard to the subject accident, because I do have a copy of the report before me, just so and you're aware of that, okay? Did you actually do the preparation of the factual diagram? No. And who did that? It was Officer Williams. Could you spell that for me? Last name Williams. And what rank is Officer Williams? He's currently, currently, or at the time of the collision. Do both. Let's talk about the time of the collision. He was an officer at the time of the collision. I believe he's an investigator currently. At the time of the strike that. At the time you graduated from the academy, what was your first position or your first post? My first position with the California Highway Patrol was a cadet while I was at the academy. How long did you remain a cadet? For the 27 weeks. And obviously the academy was your first experience. Strike that. I don't mean to say obviously. I don't know the strike that. The academy would have been your first experience in the world of police science as far as learning how to investigate accidents, police work, that nature. Is that right? Yes. Okay. And after your 27 weeks of being a cadet, I know that you then completed the academy, correct? Correct. And then what was your position with the CHP at that time? I then became an officer. And tell me what an officer is. An officer with the California Highway Patrol is a uniformed position, and we investigate traffic collisions, numerous different crimes that happened in the state. We assist disabled motorists, we provide aid, and we respond to emergency incidents. Okay, and you give traffic tickets? Yes. I don't mean to stress that, but that's one of the things you do on parole? Yes. Okay, now in the academy, did you take any courses, whatever, that related to accident reconstruction? No. Up to the present time, have you ever taken any courses in accident reconstruction? No. And would it be a fair and accurate comment that as we sit here today and during the time you were involved in the investigation of this accident, you do not call yourself an accident investigator, correct? Correct. You don't call yourself out as an engineer, do you? No. You understood that with regard to this accident, your sole responsibility was to go to the scene and to gather the evidence and to talk to witnesses and to report those things in the report, correct? Correct. With regard to any opinions, official opinions, if you will, as to cause of the accident, you understood you would ultimately leave that to the experts, if you will, true? As far as cause of the collision, correct. We are trained to establish a cause of the collision at the conclusion of our investigation. You did not reconstruct formally this accident, correct? I didn't do the actual diagram. You didn't do any kind of accident reconstruction on this accident, correct? Correct. Okay, and you didn't do any analysis from an engineering standpoint ever, correct? Correct. And you're not an engineer? Right. Again, I'm not in any way trying to demean. I'm trying to clarify your role. You understood your role in this case was to gather the evidence, talk to the witnesses, and prepare a report, correct? Correct. All right. Now, this accident happened on 7/18 of 12. Strike that. After becoming an officer, that would have been approximately when? October of 2011. And where were you positioned at that point? Where were you stationed? I was positioned at the CHP Cypress Hills office, where I currently am stationed. And you were patrolling? Yes. And upon some accidents, you would be called upon to perform some accident investigation? Yes. And prior to the happening of this accident on 7/18/12, had you ever been involved as the primary investigating officer writing the report and reporting a fatal accident? No. This was your first one? Yes. And prior to the happening of this accident, had you ever been involved in any respect in the investigation of a fatal or fatality accident? No. All right, that will conclude our Q&A practice.